Hello. Whenever you are learning Python, there are four basic data types: string, list, tuple, dictionary, which you need to know well before you study any advanced topics. Because there are similar operations but different output of these data types, it gets very confusing when actual exam questions are asked on it. So here I am attempting to teach all four together rather than one by one so that you can save time, see the difference side by side and remember how it works. Also, each of the block of code which I am going to show you is an output question in itself. So you can practice these test questions and try to answer the questions on your own before I give the answer. Let me know in comments if you find this method speeds up your learning. So let's see them one by one. String is nothing but sequence of characters in single quotes, double quotes, or even triple quotes. Yes, the same triple quotes, which has a double role as comments in Python, is actually a multi-line string. Next, let's see list. List is a sequence of data enclosed in square brackets and separated by comma. So you can have different data types such as integer, float, string, tuple, dictionary, or even a nested list inside a list. Next is tuples. Tuple is very much similar to list. It is also a sequence of data separated by comma, but it is enclosed in round brackets. Here too, you can have integer, float, string, list, dictionary, or even a nested tuple inside a tuple. Next is dictionary. It is a collection of data in key value pairs separated by comma and enclosed in curly brackets. The key value pairs are separated by colon and each of these are called items. Now string, list and tuples are ordered sequences, means they have data which is in order, first, second, third and so on. But dictionary is unordered mapping. Since it has a key and value pair, it stores them in hash table. Hash table is nothing but a way to store data which helps to retrieve values quickly using a key. Since it uses keys to retrieve values, keys have to be unique and no duplicate key is allowed. Also, data can be stored in any order and what you entered first might not be at the same place in the final dictionary. Now out of these, list and dictionary are mutable, string and tuples are immutable. What does this mean? If we take a string and if we try to edit a string in place, it will give an error. Whenever you change a string, it will always give it to you in a new memory location. But in case of list and dictionary, you can edit them in place, means at the same memory location. Now let's see what are the different ways to create each one of them. Let's start with string. If we just put two quotes together, single or double, it will initialize the variable with empty string. You can also create an empty string with str function. When you run it, you will see quotes are not printed and there is blank for empty string. Now what happens if you create a string in quotes and you give backslash and continue writing text in the next line? How is it different from creating a string using triple quotes? When you run it, you will see the string is printed in one line. Note the space which we left in the beginning is also printed. The slash is important if you want to write in second line while coding. Without slash, you will get an error. Now, if you put the string in triple quotes, you will see this is true multi-line string and string is printed in multiple rows. Here to note, the space which we left in the second line is also printed. Now let's take a look at list. If you just give square brackets, it is called empty list. You can create an empty list with list function too. If we run this, you will see unlike string where no quotes are displayed, here even for empty list, square bracket is displayed, which you need to remember for any output kind of question. You can also write list in multiple lines, But if you run this, you will see it will print list in one line only. Also note string codes are printed when you put them inside a list. Next tuple is quite similar to list for creation. You can create an empty tuple by just giving round brackets, or you can use tuple function too for the same. When you print an empty tuple, it will print the round brackets which you need to remember for output questions. Here too, while coding, you can write a tuple in multiple lines, but when you run it, it will print it in one line only. Now let's see some interesting behavior of tuple creation. What will happen if you put only one element in round brackets? If you run this, it will show you that it is still an int. Why? This is because it is considering this as an arithmetic round brackets. If you want it to be tuple, then you have to remember to put a comma after the first element. Now it will show it as a tuple. Another interesting way to create a tuple is to just assign multiple values separated by comma to a single variable. This is also called packing of tuple. Python packs multiple values into a tuple and then assigns it to the variable. Now let's see dictionaries. To create an empty dictionary, you can just give empty curly brackets, or you can use dict function too to create an empty dictionary. Let's see some important behavior about dictionary keys. Keys cannot be duplicate and are unique in dictionary because they are used to access the values. So what happens if you give duplicate keys while creation? Will it give an error? No, it will just remove the duplicate value and keep the last value you have given in. Next important thing is that keys can never be mutable type, means it cannot be list or dictionary. Since keys are unique and are used to retrieve values, keys cannot be allowed to change. If you give list as key, it will give key error. However, list and dictionaries can be values in dictionary. Now let's look at what are the different ways to create them by converting one data type to another. String has str function which can be used to convert any other data type into string. So if you give it an integer or float number and submit, it will concat instead of adding as they are converted into string, so showing string behavior. Similarly, you can pass list, tuple, dictionary to str function. If you check type of any of these, it will give str, and if you print it, then you will see it will concatenate all elements into a string along with brackets, commas, colons and everything. Now if you see list, it also has a list function to convert other data type to list. If you try to pass int or float, it will give type error saying that it is not iterable. You can only pass sequences and mapping like string, tuple and dictionary here, and it behaves very differently for each of them. If you give a string, what it does is it breaks it into characters and returns a list of characters. If you give a tuple, it will just convert round bracket to square. If you give a dictionary, it will create a list of only the keys and drop the values of all of them. Now let's see tuple. Here too, there is a tuple function to convert other data types to tuple. It works quite similar to list. If you try to use int or float, it will give type error saying that it is not iterable. If you give a string, it will break it into characters and return a tuple of characters. If you give a list, it will convert square bracket to round. If you give a dictionary, it will create a tuple of only the keys and drop the values of all items. Now let's see dictionary. It also has a dict function which can be used to convert other data types to dictionary, but just passing a int value, float, a string or a single list does not work. Here they need to be in a specific format. First method is if we give it a list of tuple, where each tuple is a key value pair, it will convert it into dictionary. Second method is if we have two separate tuples or list of keys and values, you can use the zip function and it will create dictionary with key value pairs from them. Here also, please note if you give duplicate keys, it will automatically retain the last value. Third method to create a dictionary is to use from keys function of dictionary. If you have a list or tuple of keys and you pass it to this function, it will create a dictionary where none will be the default value for all keys. Note here also, it removes the duplicate keys. Optionally, in this function, you can pass an additional value and it will then use that value as the default value for all the keys. Now let's see how we will take user input for all of them. For string, we use the input function which by default reads everything as string. So if you see the type output, you will see it is a string. If we need int or float value as input, we use the same input function and then use int or float function to convert this string into the desired type. Now how do we input a list? Can we use list function to convert input to list? You can, but if you run it, result might not be what you expect. We saw earlier how list function behaves on string. It does the same thing over here and gives a list of characters. But what we want is that it should properly read individual values of list. This is possible if you use eval function. Eval function can evaluate what data type you are giving and gives that specific data type. So if you give a list with square brackets, it will properly interpret all data types in it and return a list. It works almost the same way with tuple. If you try to use tuple function, it will break the string into tuple of characters only. But what we want is that it should be able to read individual data types. Here too, we have to use eval. So here, if we give a tuple as input with round brackets, it will be able to evaluate it's a tuple. We had also learned that if we give multiple values separated by comma to a single variable, it packs them and creates a tuple. Similarly, in eval, if you miss giving round brackets, it will still pack them into a tuple. Now what about dictionary? Here, if you use dict function, it will not work at all and give you an error. We have to use eval function, and if we give a dictionary with proper curly brackets, it will give us dictionary as the output. Now let's look at how operators behave for each of them. First, we will see plus and multiply operator. For a string, if we use plus operator with another string, it will concatenate two strings. You cannot use this plus operator to concatenate any other data type to string. It gives error for all of them. Now for a string, if we give multiply by a number, it works as replication operator and repeats the contents that many number of times. Here also, multiplication works with integer number only and you cannot use any other data type. Now if we take list, here too plus operator concatenates but only with another list. You cannot concatenate any other data type. It gives error. If we use multiplication operator with an integer value, it works as a replication operator. Here too, you can only use an integer value to multiply. It will give a new list with original list replicated that many number of times. Tuples also behave the same way. If you use plus operator, you can concatenate only tuples, and for multiplication operator, you can only give integer value and it works as a replication operator and gives a new tuple with original tuple replicated n times. Now what about dictionary? It does not allow plus or multiplication operator. As keys cannot be duplicated, it does not allow either of them. Now let's see relational operator equal to, not equal to, greater than and less than, and see how they perform on each one of them. For strings, we can use relational operator like equal to compare if two strings are equal. Note it will always do a case sensitive comparison. If they are same case, it will return true, but if they are different in case, they will return false. We can also use greater than and less than to alphabetically sort strings. Here it does ASCII value comparisons. Like here, if I give A greater than B, it will compare 65 greater than 66 and it will give false. If you have string with multiple characters, it will do character-wise comparison till unequal characters are found, and it will return overall result as the result of comparison of that unequal pair. If you have two strings of unequal length with same first characters, then it gives the result that the longer string is greater. Now let's see how relational operator works with list. We can use equal to compare two lists. Two lists will compare as equal and return true if they are the same length, and all pair of items compare as equal. If any pair is not matching, it will return false. So how does greater than and less than then works with list? The pair of item at each position are compared and it will stop moment it finds an unequal pair. And in that case, the result of the comparison of that pair will be returned. Or if two lists are of unequal length, then first it will compare the common elements. If they are same, then the longer list is considered greater than the shorter list. Now tuples work exactly same as list. We can use equal to compare two lists and it will return true if they are of the same length and all pair of items compare as equal. For less than and greater than, here too it will first compare pair of items at each position and will stop and return the result of unequal pair. If the two tuples are of unequal length but the common elements are same, then the longer tuple is considered greater than the shorter tuple. Now let's see how relational operators work for dictionaries. You can use equal to and not equal to compare two dictionaries. For it to return true, in both dictionaries, all keys along with their values should match. Now you cannot use other relational operators like greater than, less than to compare dictionaries. All of them will give type error. Now let's see the next operator, which is the in operator or the membership operator. It is a very easy search operator which you can use to check whether the value or variable exists or not in a sequence, like in a string, list, tuple, dictionary. It returns true or false. You cannot use it to search in int or float values. If we take a string, you can check if a character or substring is present in it or not. Do note, it does a case-sensitive search and it will return true only if exact match is found. If we change case, it will give false. In case of a list, if we try to search for an element, it tries to find exact match. If it finds it, it returns true, else it will return false. Do note, it cannot enter nested list and then try to find a match. You can, however, ask it to search for a complete list or tuple inside another list or tuple. You will note exactly similar behavior in tuples. Using in operator, you can do a quick search of an element. It will return true only if it finds exact match. But here also, it will not enter nested tuples to search for the element, but it can find nested sequence like list inside tuple. Now, how does it work in dictionary? In dictionary, it searches only in the keys. So only if the key matches, it will say true, else it will return false. So we cannot search dictionary values using in. Here too, it will not enter a string or tuple to find a match, but you can search for complete tuple as a key. Only if it is an exact match, it will return true. Next, we will see the is operator, which is also called as identity operator. It is used to test if two variables refer to the same object. For example, if we take a string and use one of the strings to convert it into lowercase and then compare it using equal to operator, it will return true as both have same values. But the is operator will return false as string is immutable. So when we used lowercase method, it returned a new object at a different address. So even though the value is same, is operator will return false as their address is different. Now if we take list, we see an interesting behavior. We use equal to operator to assign one list to another and then we change one of the list. Now if we check both equal to and is operator, we will see both return true. How are the both lists same? It is because list is mutable. When we use equal to operator to assign to a new list, it does not create a copy. Both variables point to the same list. If you try to change one of them, the other changes too. If you want a separate copy, then you need to use copy function of list. Now you will see both lists are different. Now if we take tuple, it is immutable. So if you take a tuple and assign it into another tuple and change one of them, then both equal to and is operator will return false. Now when we take a dictionary, since it is mutable, its behavior is same as list. When we use equal to operator to assign one dictionary to another and change one of them. Now if we check both using equal to or is operator, we will see both return true. Here too, if you use copy function, you will get two separate dictionaries. Now D1 and D2 are two separate dictionaries, and if you change one, it is not reflected in other. With this, we have covered the operators, and this is all we will cover for today. In our next video, we will learn how indexing slicing works on string list tuple dictionary, and next how to use various functions with them. Thank you and all the best.